Hi everyone, and welcome back to Adrian's Digital Basement. On today's video, it's everyone's least favorite segment, Mail Call. This is actually part 2. If you haven't watched part 1, I recommend you go back and watch that first. And let's get right to it. Next package is from Kevin in Farmington Hills, Michigan. It's kind of a large one. It's hard to fit all in camera. What's in here? It's a little bit of a mystery. Oh, wow, look at this. Looks like a Ti99 4A. It is indeed. Well, that's very interesting. This is one of the later Ti99s. The ones earlier had silver cases with a black right here. This is the cartridge slot, goes right in there. If I have my history correct, the later Ti99 switched to this beige color, maybe as a cost reduction. Not totally sure. This particular computer has seen better days. It's like these two keys are snapped off. These actually look like Alps SKCC switches, if I have my Alps switches right. Cream. And unfortunately the stem is thin, and if it snaps sideways it can just come right off with the key. And these two both appear to be broken. Yep, that's definitely, these are Alps switches. And interesting is Alps of this variety were used on the Macintosh 128 through the Mac Plus. Also some other computers around that time are really known to be excellent linear switches. And they make a very interesting ping noise as you type on them. Feels absolutely fantastic to type on this particular keyboard. And I actually have another Ti99 4A, and the one I have is the silver earlier type, but it has a very crappy feeling keyboard. So like a lot of 8-bit computers in this era, they came with a variety of different keyboards. And I didn't actually realize that some of these Ti99s had the Alps keyboard in them, which feels fantastic to type on. And other ones probably have cheaper stack pull, which I think is what's in the other one I have. I think my friend Brian actually gave me some replacement switches for this computer. I have to check my parts bin. But if that's the case, I can actually desolder and remove these switches, install new ones, and then I'll just need to find the appropriate keys to complete this keyboard again. This keyboard has definitely had something very gross spilled on it at one point. You could definitely see some evidence of that there. It's maybe a chocolate or soda or something. Well, although considering that's happened, it's very easy to type on and the keys work very smoothly. I'm sure it wouldn't be too hard to take this apart and clean this up to make it work well again. Well, I checked in my parts bin and I do have some Alps switches in here, but these are unfortunately the tall version that are used on the Apple Macintosh keyboards from those early machines. So unfortunately my friend Brian gave me these replacements. These are not compatible with this particular keyboard. Well, let's keep taking a look at this thing. All right, so one of the things I noticed here is the power switch is missing entirely. There's a little slider switch here that opens and closes and it's just gone. So I don't think it will be even possible to turn this thing on without taking the cover off. It looks like whatever got spilled on the keyboard also sort of poured out of the bottom of this. So it sort of goes back to my theory that maybe it was soda or something, because there's definite residue on the side cover here. There's also evidence right here on the back that this thing was quite filled. Oh, and there's a crack here in the case. It looks like it got an impact right there and broke it. I don't think this would have happened during shipping. I have a feeling this might have happened before. This thing was pretty decently wrapped considering it doesn't weigh very much. Definitely loose parts, so things aren't so great for this poor old machine. Now, I sound kind of clueless about this machine. A lot of times people email me ahead of time before sending me stuff. You don't need to do that, but it gives me a little bit of a backstory. Although I do apologize because Kevin might have emailed me and maybe I didn't see his email. So I'll go check on my email, see if there's anything from him. But first, let's crack this thing open. Let's see if this pops off. Definitely some food residue or liquid residue in there. Okay, interesting construction. I've actually never taken one of these apart. The entire computer is screwed into the top cover. The bottom cover lifts off. So this reveals the keyboard, the motherboard, which is under this RF shield, and some type of board here, which is probably the power supply. I wouldn't be surprised. Yeah, there's some 2-pin connector here. I seem to recall a large brick that powers this thing up, and there's probably an internal power supply that generates the 5 volts and 12 volts or whatever other rails this thing uses. And yep, there's a little power supply. We have a bridge rectifier, some caps, voltage regulators, little control ICs for it. All right, a couple screws, and the motherboard assembly comes out. Keyboard is connected with this multi-pin connector here. Okay, there we have the keyboard and the rest of the chassis here. So things floating around. There was plastic standoffs and things inside here. If I can use this keyboard mechanism in my other Ti99, it has black keys, but if they fit on these key switches, that would be fantastic. A nice, very nice upgrade for that particular computer. I don't have my other Ti99 with me right now. It's at the office right now. I have a little bit of a computer display there just to basically make a little more space inside my house, to be honest, but also because some of the computers look neat and people like to look at them. And it was actually just today, I was on a video conference call and one of my coworkers said, "Is that a Ti99 4A behind you?" And I said, yes it is. And I held it up and showed it to him and he was like, "Oh wow, that's so incredible. How cool is that?" That means I don't have that machine handy to compare with, but I do have the original power supply at home for this machine. Although I noticed that it has 4 pins, and on here it says pins 1 and 2 are 18 volts AC and pins 2 and 4 are 7.5. But on the power connector into this power supply, there are only 2 pins, though there are 2 extra holes for the other 2 pins. So I'm assuming this is still compatible. I mean, the connector still plugs in perfectly. So we'll test this out in a second. So I'm going to move this to the side. So yeah, at a future time, I'm going to try to do a little bit of restoration on this keyboard. And then if you know if this is compatible with my other Ti99, the black keys, let me know in the comment section below. But it's definitely, I can tell this is a good Alps keyboard and the one on that one is not. So it's quite possible the keys are so different that they're not compatible. All right, let me try to crack this thing open so we can look inside. Oh, look at that, a little heatsink thing going on here for probably what is the main CPU. But there's the motherboard. So one thing you'll notice is this rather large chip here. And the reason for that is this computer, which I think came out around 1980, is actually a 16-bit computer, a true 16-bit computer. So the size of this processor is because I guess it has a 16-bit data bus. I've never looked into the schematics of this machine, but I do remember reading it was the first commercially available 16-bit consumer machine out there. Although the performance was extremely hindered because I think everything is connected to this processor using an 8-bit data bus. So all the performance advantage of the 16-bit is just not realized on it. It's curious about these wires that are running all around here. I'm assuming what this is additional power or grounding. Maybe things just weren't possible to run with traces, so they did run these. This chip with the heatsink compound where this top shield was on is probably the graphics chip, I would imagine. It's fascinating that we have these 4 TI chips here in sockets and everything else on the motherboard is not socketed. This motherboard used a lot of these things here, which I think are like a bus bar system, which allowed power and ground to be moved around the computer pretty quickly and easily without needing to make the motherboard larger to hold these big traces. There's a few interesting things here. There's a 9-pin there and there's a 9-pin on the back here. I kind of recall the Ti99 had a single joystick port, and maybe it was one of these, or maybe these are both the same, and there's a little splitter that goes from one of these into 2 regular joysticks. There's also a DIN connector here, which I think is like a video output. Oh yeah, I did a quick Google and I found this really handy chart that lists all the different DIN connectors on the various 8-bit computers from the old days. And the thing that's very rude about the Ti99, which is on the top, is that pin 1 is 12 volts. So if you accidentally connect the wrong pin to, say, your monitor, you can kiss your monitor goodbye. I don't think many monitors are going to tolerate 12 volts very well into its video input circuitry. 5 volts, it might survive. 12, no. So looking on further though, pin 4 is composite, pin 2 is ground, and pin 3, which is all the way on the left, is the audio. And if we scroll down to the Commodore 64, other than the 12 volts being on the S-video pin, if I use the regular Commodore 64 composite cable, it's 4, 2, and 3, which is actually exactly the same on this machine. And I just happen to have one right here. I have it labeled as VIC-20, but it's the same DIN connector. You actually can't plug the Commodore 64 one in that has S-video because it has additional pins that won't even go into the connector on this motherboard. But this one should work fine. So I will just connect this up, and probably what I'll do is before I plug this into anything, I will just double check I'm not seeing 12 volts coming out of any of those pins. So I have the multimeter here. I'm just going to do a little bit of testing once I power this up for the first time. But this little power supply unit, here's the toggle switch that you slide left and right where that original power switch went through the case, which was missing on this one. And let's plug this in. I don't even know which way is off and on here, so I guess I'm just going to see what happens. No smoke came out. Okay, 11.9 volts there on that pin. -5 there. That must be the ground pin. 5.3 there. That's a little bit high, I gotta say. Probably okay. Just make things run a little hotter. And I'm just gonna quickly test out these pins here, make sure I'm not getting 12 volts. No, -1.8, whatever, that's fine. -2.8. This is the audio pin. I will not even plug that into the speaker. Could be just a little bit of noise, just in case this only works with the keyboard connected, because I have seen that before. I've plugged the keyboard back in, and we'll try the power switch again. Here we go. No joy, unfortunately. So I did a little bit of quick troubleshooting where I removed and deoxidated this socket and these chips here as well, but that didn't change anything. I'm still getting a black screen when I turn on the machine. I don't have time for a troubleshooting video, especially because I know absolutely nothing about Ti99s. But if you happen to know good troubleshooting steps or things I might try to check out on this machine, or what common symptoms and issues are with it, I'd love to let me know. Let me know in the comment section below, because it might be something simple, or it might be something that people are easily aware of, and you can just let me know, and I'll be able to fix this thing up. It'd be nice to have a spare working motherboard. So I want to thank Kevin for sending me this computer, because at the minimum, it's some spare parts for my other Ti99, which works at the moment, but you never know what might break in the future. So thanks very much. All right, next package. It's from Amazon. So it came to me at mail call. I don't have any idea what this could be. It's kind of heavy, actually. So maybe it's a fire extinguisher. Ah, there's a note in the bottom of the box. All right, and here's the note. Hopefully a better option for letting C64 PCBs hang out to dry. Enjoying your channel? Thank you, Timo. Thank you, Timo. I'm pretty sure you sent me an email letting me know this was coming. I vaguely recall that. So let's crack this open and take a look at what's inside of the box. Aha. Oh, look. Something that a lot of people wished I used. An anti-static wrist strap. Okay, well, oh look, electric duster, ESD safe. Let's take a look at the little paper that came with it. Metro Models VM MDV-1 ED500. All right, the ultimate cleaning solution, DataVac. The green alternative to canned air, now designed to eliminate electrostatic discharge. Oh, so I take it this blows air out. This is it. This is the one that came here. The model ED500. Sorry, the paper is really glossy. The unbelievable power of electric duster with ESD safe capabilities. Efficiently blast away dirt, dust, and debris from electronics. And a little instruction manual, but I don't need that. Who needs instruction manuals? Now, one thing I'll say is I do have a can of this duster stuff here. I keep this on the bench, but I gotta say, I hardly ever use this. I've had this can, probably it's still got some in there. This has been sitting on my bench maybe for 6 months or more. And considering how many computers that come through my lab, I just don't use this stuff very often. Now, what I have in my garage is one of the reasons why I don't really use this thing. And it's one of those air compressors you would use for working on a car. It's not a full-size one, but it's small. And originally I got it for airing up my car tires, and I don't even have any electric tools. It was honestly for putting air in my car tires. I hate going to the gas station to do that. But anyhow, I use that. I have one of those nozzle things attached to it, and I'll take a computer outside. Whoops. I'll take a computer outside, and I will put it on the ground and shoot it with the air and blow out the majority of the dust. So it's a little bit inconvenient because I have to go outside. But honestly, like with that compact Desk Pro computer I recently worked on, it was so dirty inside. I didn't want to blow air on it from inside the basement here. It would just send dust bunnies everywhere. So that's one of the reasons why I go outside to do that. And that's one of the reasons why I don't really use this very often. Although I think I do use it periodically. You guys have probably seen me use it on video now and then. In this little bag here, it says it's a micro cleaning kit, which seems to have some adapters. Ah, yeah, look at that. It goes from the larger nozzle down to something smaller. I'm really laughing. They stick these ESD stickers on everything. I mean, I'm sorry, this looks just like the nozzle that I have with my vacuum cleaner. What exactly makes this ESD safe? I mean, this bag is certainly not an anti-static bag. I wouldn't trust that to put some super sensitive component in. And what other than this yellow sticker makes this ESD? And look, it's on here too. And we have a regular upholstery looking brush, which actually plugged into my regular vacuum cleaner might be good for cleaning the motherboards. I could actually suck the dust directly into the vacuum cleaner. Now, are these bristles somehow special that they're ESD safe? Because it's got the yellow sticker on it. And it's got an earth mains lead here. Yes, the Yankee plug, as Dave Jones says on EEVBlog. And this unit here obviously is a blower. It's not a vacuum cleaner. There's nowhere to attach a bag. And it has a little bit of a filter on the bottom here. So, and a pretty nice feeling handle. I guess when you plug this in, it blows air. And if we attach this little downsizer nozzle, an on-off switch right there. So I think that's off. Let's plug this in. Yeah, so much for me knowing what the off switch was. Sorry about that. Headphone warning. I'll have to put that on video before I do that. I'm going to turn this thing on again and see how powerful this thing is. Well, it's really loud, but I have to say that with this little downsizer on there, it puts out a lot of air. Let me try this ESD safe slanty nozzle here. There we go. This should probably be pretty forceful as well. Well, that's really awesome. Timo, I really appreciate it. Thank you very much for this. This actually will be really good for drying out boards, especially if I don't go ahead and use alcohol, I just use water on it. There's enough pressure on this, if I especially get close to the board, that it will probably blow the majority of the water straight out from under the chips, and then I can just air dry the thing, and I don't need to use any of that 99% IPA. Oh, well, check this out. This is the nozzle part with the long tube disconnected from my vacuum cleaner. And here's the ESD safe brush. Look at that. It connects right up. So I can really scrub and suck the dust right off of things. I'm actually pretty excited literally about this. This is going to be great. I usually have the vacuum cleaner nearby down in the lab here for when I drop stuff on the floor. I need to suck it up. And this will really come in handy. I'm even more excited now. So again, thank you so much, Timo. You'll probably see this being used in upcoming videos. Okay, next up we have a package from Maggie in Cambridge, Mass. She emailed me after I got the Amiga 1000 from Desi and said she's starting up a little bit of an Amiga store and wanted to send me a Kickstart board that would allow me to not have to use that Kickstart floppy disk every time I turned on the 1000. Oh, there's a whole bunch of stuff in here. Well, Maggie, you've really outdone yourself. You sent me a real selection here. All right, let's see. So first off, we have a Motorola 6810. This is a drop-in replacement for the 68000 and offers a little bit of a performance boost. I'm not completely sure about how much, but considering it's so easy, you just drop it in, even if it gives you a few percent, hey, that's better than nothing. And here is the Amiga 1000 Kickstart switcher. Now, one thing about this kit, and we chatted via email briefly about it. So one thing about this kit is I don't know how well this is going to work with my 1000 because my 1000 has that RAM expansion board in it. And to use something like this, it's going to have to sit between the motherboard and the RAM expansion board. We'll take a look at that in a second. Now you notice that this has spots for 2 Kickstart ROMs. And what's cool about that is it includes a little toggle switch right here, which probably allows you to easily switch between these 2 active Kickstart ROMs. I think there's also a connection you have to do, and it says 2UAL or something like that right there. I don't have my magnifying glasses on. This has to run over to the motherboard somewhere to allow this thing to work. In fact, there's a little bit of instructions on the back. It says you have to cut a trace, add a resistor, do some stuff. So there's some modifications to be made. But I feel that getting something like this working is worth it if you're going to use the 1000 in any serious way. Using a Kickstart disk is just a bit of a pain in the butt. Here's a letter. Hi, per our email thread, here's a bunch of stuff. Hope some of it ends up being useful. Thanks for all the great content. Maggie McPhee. Well, Maggie, let's keep looking at this stuff. This looks like some kind of cotton swabs. In fact, these are much nicer foam ones. So instead of the kind that I use, which are actually made out of threaded cotton that sort of rip off and leave threads all over the place, these are foam rubber ones and are a lot better, I think, at cleaning specific tight components. So she sent me a whole bag full of these. That's awesome. Thank you, Maggie. All right, excellent. This is the bare PCB for the Kickstart relocator, which is good for me because I think I might need to end up using this one to make this all work inside my 1000. We'll take a look at that in just a second. All right, and the next thing, oh, this is kind of funny. It's the 680,000 CPU relocator. Maggie, you have one extra zero on the processor number there. Oh, nifty. All right, so this is neat. This would work for any classic Amiga, of course. If moving the processor perhaps to install an accelerator board, like one of those terrible fire cards, these might be necessary to make it all work inside your computer. So she sent me one with the socket installed and the pins, and then another bare PCB. Ooh, what's in here? Like gold coins, something cool? Oh, nope. DiagROM version 1.2. I am unfamiliar with this. This looks to be about the same size as a Kickstart ROM. So what is this? You pop it in place to the Kickstart and you get diagnostics? I never heard of this. So wow, very cool. Okay, so this is the Amiga 1000. It's been sitting over here neglected for a little while, only because I haven't had a chance to work on it. So this is what I was talking about. This card that's upside down is the RAM expansion card. It's installed sort of about like so. So the extra RAM hangs off to the side around this daughter card. And this daughter card is on all of the US first generation Amiga 1000. This has the extra Kickstart RAM. So as you boot the Kickstart disk, it loads it into special protected memory, which is like a RAM-based ROM, essentially. And because of this board, there's just not a lot of space. But there's also something else. Here is the floppy drive connection. That's why I have this removed. And because I remember I took that GoTech out and I was going to put a floppy drive back in here. Well, to get to the floppy connector under there, you got to take this RAM card off. But the thing is, notice this has a double set of sockets on here, a double set of pins. And the reason is, it's really for clearance of this cable and all this stuff here. So the socket that this CPU is plugged into goes through the PCB and the pins extend all the way down to here. And then what's happening is there's another one of those sockets / pin header thing connected, and that makes this thing double height. Let's move this floppy cable. So if I take this Kickstart card and we put it here, I think it does actually fit in the socket, and then this floppy cable will have to lie on top. But then the problem is, let's just put that there. When I put this RAM board on here, well, clearly this is not going to work on this card, at least in this configuration, because look, it's actually going to hit this post right here. So I've been playing around with this board, and I think this is the way it's going to work. This is the Kickstart board attached on top of the RAM board. It's in the CPU socket, so I mean, it's a socket, into a socket, into a socket, into another socket, and then the CPU. In any other way, it doesn't work. I removed this extra socket and I put this underneath, and it shifts the board. That doesn't work. It hits other things. Plus, you can't have the RAM board directly on the motherboard with this socket removed. It interferes with the floppy drive connector, just as I thought. So this is it. And I'm pretty sure that the computer will go back together. I just can't put the RF shield back in, but it should work with this like that. Now, is this too much for the 68,000 bus? Quite possibly. That's a lot of connectors. So anyhow, I'll have to try this in a future video when I get to working on the Amiga 1000. So thanks, Maggie, for sending me all this cool stuff for the Amiga 1000. Hopefully I can make some of this stuff work. Don't forget to check out her store at the URL below. Hopefully it's set up by the time you see this video. All right, let's get on to the next thing. Okay, we have the next package from Jeffrey in Hampton, Virginia. Actually, I already opened this up just to take a look inside. All right, what we have here are a bunch of Commodore 64 chips. Jeffrey found these while he was looking around in his house, and he said, "Hey, would you like these?" And I said, "Absolutely." As I fix these old 64s, I end up finding bad chips all the time, and I have to go into my own spare parts, which I'm running low on a bunch of things. So things like this will be a great help. Okay, let's check these out. You know what time it is. It's time for the ZIF 64, so we can test out the longboard chips. Oh, so whenever I bust out the ZIF 64, I turn it on, make sure it works, because a lot of times I've pillaged and done things to it and leave it in an unworking state. but it's working with everything stock in here. All right, of the chips that Jeffrey sent me, I've done a little inventory. The ones that are on the foam here, I still don't exactly know what these are. I need to look them up. But these are the Commodore 64 chips for the long board, like my ZIF board. We have at the top here a PLA. We have kernel ROMs, we have basic ROMs, character ROMs, and we have a SID chip, 6581. So we can test all of these in this, and let's see if these work. All right, let's take out my good character ROM. I'll stick that there, and let's just go one by one through these character ROMs. I'm just going to quickly test one chip at a time. That way I'm sure that the chip is good or not. So character ROM. That is a good chip. Both character ROMs were good. Now we're moving on to the kernel ROMs. I have to say kernel ROMs seem to go bad more frequently, but hey, we're off to a good start. That one is good. And all three kernel ROMs are good. So we're moving on to the basic ROMs now. All of these ROM chips are actually good. All three kernels, both basics, and both character ROMs. Thumbs up. All right, the next chip we're going to be testing is this PLA he gave me. 906114-01 from 1986. So this is very late in the bread bin. And these ones typically run much cooler. Let's, okay, it's in the right way around. Let's turn this on. And it's working. Yeah, I'm not surprised. I found that the PLAs from the end of the bread bin period work pretty reliably. They run a lot cooler than the earlier ones. And Commodore kept making spare replacements for these old boards into the later 80s. Like I've seen some that are 88 year, and those run basically cool to the touch. So I'm assuming that Commodore upgraded the process used on those PLAs to the more modern ones that were used on the 64C, which just runs a lot cooler and seems to be more reliable, at least in the long run. I'm just going to leave the computer on for a couple of minutes and we'll see if this PLA warms up at all or stays cool to the touch. So the computer's been running for a few minutes and the PLA, yeah, it's warm, but it's not burning my finger. And it's about as warm as the CPU. So that's good. The original PLA without a heatsink gets really, really hot. Next up is this SID chip, 6581 from 1982. So this is one of the very original ones, no revision number. We'll take out the Swin SID, which you guys heard demos of in my last video. Let's pop this into the U18 spot. And you know what I'm going to have to do? We're going to have to boot up Donkey Kong Arcade for a little 8-bit dance party. Okay, I'm turning up the volume on the speaker. Here we go. Is it going to work? What's happening? Oh no, it's bad. This is not dance party worthy. Oh, it's horrible. Listen. There's a bad channel in there. Yeah, there's a bad channel, unfortunately. So that is not dance party worthy. Let's exit out of here and we'll go to Adrian's tools and we'll run the SID tester here. That's this one. This is the one we used in the last video. And let's just give it a quick test on all waveforms. Headphone warning, everyone. Headphone warning. Voice 1 is fine. That's fine. Wow, so on their own, all three channels seem to work fine. Let's try one of these other ones and see if any of these other ones are screwed up. So this filter's bad right here. No sound. On both, okay, high is working, low pass is bad, band pass is bad, and the same thing here, we're still having the same problems. Band pass is totally dead. And the high pass is working fine. So this is something to watch out for if you're buying a SID chip. If someone does a test and all they do is simply test it with a regular diagnostic, that's not good enough. You need to run through a full diagnostic, like with something like this software or game. So if you're going to buy one and it's from someone who has a 64, insist that they play a game or they run this entire test and record it and send you that recording. That is the only way you can be sure you're going to get a good 6581. And let's try the modulation test. Yep, so it all comes back to the filter test. There's something to remember about the SID chip too. It's an analog synthesizer. Yes, there's some digital components in there, but there are analog parts of it as well. So that's how you can have a chip that, you know, the computer is able to control, it seems to be working, it's making sounds, but not everything is working in it because some analog components have failed in there. And that's why when they die, you have these random problems or a channel is bad or some filter is bad, or, you know, you never know what you're going to get. And just so you're not going to get snookered, I'm going to run the diagnostic test here and we'll listen to what the sound is, just so you know that this SID probably is going to sound perfect in this test. And that's why this is not a good test. But the noise, that should be playing a noise sound right now, and that doesn't work. Okay, so it did show up as a little bit broken in this test, but for the most part, those tones, that sounded perfect. And while this machine was running and warming up, I went through and I figured out what all these chips are. We have two 1571 DOS chips, C16 or Commodore 16 kernel, and a C16 basic chip. We have a C128 basic chip, a C128 kernel. We have a C16 PLA on the bottom here, and of course this is the shortboard SID, which I'll bust out my shortboard and we'll test that right now. The shortboard with the China SID is now inside this case, so let me just pop this open. I don't have this fully together because unfortunately this case had one of the longboards in it. While the shortboard absolutely mounts in the case without issue, the keyboard mounting brackets are different. The original longboard had an RF shield that integrated the mounting bracket for the keyboard. Totally not compatible with this. The one on this side I was able to make work by cutting off a little tab, so that's properly attached. But yeah, I need to 3D print or do something to figure out how to mount this keyboard in here. So let's pull out the China SID. There it is. And here is the 8580 R5 that Jeffrey sent me. Needs a little pin straightening. Okay, time for Donkey Kong Arcade. Is it an 8-bit dance party? Yes or no? Come on, come on. So far, so good. Oh yeah, that sounds good. So of course that earns this chip the check mark of success. There we go. And let's go to SID tester and we'll do the test here real quick. And yes, success. All the sounds are perfect in the SID tester. So this 8580 R5 SID is absolutely working fine, just like my last one from China. So thank you very much, Jeffrey, for sending these in to me. I really appreciate it. This will go a long way for all of those upcoming repairs that everyone knows that I do have. Well, that's going to be it for this mail call video. I wanted to just say how grateful I am to everyone who donated to me either in person or by sending stuff into my P.O. box. It humbles me to no end that people like my videos enough that they want to send stuff to me. I can't even believe that. A few years ago, before I started doing these videos, I never would have thought the channel would be at this point where it is. I'm still a small potato compared to LGR or 8-Bit Guy, but it amazes me that so many of you enjoy watching my content day in and day out. So thank you very much to everyone who watches, and a huge thank you to everyone who donates. So if you like this video, I'd appreciate a thumbs up. If you didn't, you know what to do. You can hit the thumbs down button. Put your comments and your suggestions down in the comment section below. Subscribe for more videos. You can hit that little bell icon if you want to be notified when I post them. And that's going to be it. So thank you very much. See you next time, and thank you for watching. Goodbye.